The funny thing about that video was the only thing I actually understood was 11. The rest of it was foreign to me. I once had a terrible flight route to get to Sweden. We laid over in Scotland at some point, and this is after quite a long journey. Already had a layover in Washington. Didn't really sleep for the last 15 or so hours, and thank you. And the next thing I know, we get out of this plane, and people just start talking to me, and I'm a little blurry-eyed, thinking, where did we just land? Because my brain is just not comprehending what's going on here and what these people are saying to me. So Scottish is very much foreign to me in that way. So as Mark was touching on, humans. Can I actually get a clicker? I'm sorry. Is there a? Yeah. So as Mark was talking about bringing humanity into what we're looking at here, the last 60 years or so, we've been adapting to computers as humans. So all of this technology has been introduced to us. We've been adapting to that, learning to use computers, learning to build new machines, and move forward with that. Thank you. And now, for the next couple of decades, we're actually going to be forcing computers to be adapting to us. So, people think of artificial intelligence, they think of machine learning, they lump it all together into what they've seen in the media. So, how many of you have seen Iron Man? Probably, I think maybe it was the latest Captain America movie, I'm not sure, they blur together. So, a lot of people think that artificial intelligence, it's Jarvis. It's this big bundling group of dots and lines, these neural networks that float out in space and just create themselves. That's not actually how it works. There's actually humans behind that. There are people who develop and design these models. So there's still very much a strong human influence and a strong human touch to how all of this artificial intelligence is developing. All right, so the way that I want to talk about the applications of language and speech recognition today is really around kind of 4 principles in product design. So as a product designer myself, I follow strict heuristics, I follow user experience design. I think about the end user as we create these products. And when we're looking at voice recognition products, there's really kind of 4 principles that we follow. And these are the 4 rules and models of interaction that humans are having with these voice systems. So starting with command, how many of you have gotten on the phone, called your airline, called your bank? Maybe you're late to your flight today. This happens to me all the time. I'm in an Uber somewhere, the window's open because we're using Mexican air conditioning, and we're going down the highway, and they tell me, you're going to be late. You didn't know about Mexico City and all this traffic, so why don't you go ahead and call your airline and move your flight? I'm on the phone, I'm trying to tell the voice recognition system, change my reservation. Nope, please try again. Change my reservation. Nope, change my reservation. And so basically I'm in the backseat of Uber yelling at my phone and somebody's eyeing me like, what's this crazy lady doing? And that's really what the command system is. It's this model of giving a very narrow focus, so it needs to have a lot of accuracy. So there's only a certain word that it's going to understand. So change my reservation is going to take you down a certain path. And the reason that it needs this high amount of accuracy is because you're on a telephone, you have low visual cues. You're not going to get a signal, positive or negative, that this is working or something's processing. So with voice command, it's very much a system we're used to today, and it's something that, for example, if you turned on Siri and you're driving and it's playing on your iTunes, you can say, play Arcade Fire next. And it's going to recognize that band name, it's going to go play that. But if you try to say, play me something, it's Valentine's Day, play me something that I want to hear in the car with my husband. It's not going to understand that. It's not going to have that high amount of accuracy. So the second model of voice recognition interaction that we follow is for dictation. Dictation today it's pretty common. You can just go ahead and press the little, I think, either mic or globe icon on your keyboard as you're walking either on your Apple or your Android, and you actually get this voice input instead of a keyboard. So it's pretty common, it's pretty easy. I noticed some of the VOR staff today, when they were walking down the stairs, they were texting each other, but they were talking to their phones to text each other, rather than actually texting, because you guys saw the stairs out there, quite steep. You don't want to be walking down and texting at the same time. The same thing with driving and texting. There's a lot of campaigns in the United States today that are telling us driving and texting is incredibly dangerous. You get tickets, you get points, you get your license taken away. So this dictation is a very powerful mechanism to actually help us improve ourselves, improve our lives, and take us out of this danger zone. A very familiar model that I'm sure we'll hear about on and off today, agents. So agents are personalities. It's a brand. So Apple has Siri, Google has, I actually don't remember what the Google one's called. Nobody uses it. Sorry, Googlers. And you got Amazon's Alexa. So these are brand personalities that have been built. They can react to you in a certain way. They're really enveloping you in that brand, right? So you find that Siri is this wonderfully polite woman. She always tells you, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Can you try again? So there's a certain brand and a tone that's built around that. And with these agents, you can call your bank and have that same experience. You're going to have either that very contrite, move forward, tell us what you want, recite your bank account number, give us all your details. Or you're going to have more of this enveloping model. So Delta Airlines, very friendly. I get on the phone with an agent within 30 seconds of calling and saying what I need after, yelling, change my reservation 5 times. But it's very much this brand experience with that agent. And finally, identification. This isn't something that I see very common today, but surprisingly, a lot of banks are using voice recognition for security purposes. So I use HSBC because I travel in Mexico and Europe a lot, and it's easy for me to actually just use that one bank to get money out of the ATM. Whenever I travel, I have to call them. So I recall maybe about 3 years ago, I was calling HSBC. They are very trite on their phone. They're not very polite. They just go, okay, tell us your full name, tell us where you live, give us all your information. There's about 20 questions to verify who I am before they actually let me perform actions on the phone. I've noticed in the last couple of years, in thinking back, and especially as I'm talking about this last model of identification, is all of a sudden I start calling HSBC, and they say, Ms. Johansson, how are you today? Oh, you're traveling. Where are you going? Is it for work, for pleasure? Have you been there? What's great in Mexico City? Tell us all about it. And I'm thinking, this is very, very strange, because I think of HSBC as this very dry experience, this very dry brand. And actually what they're doing is they've installed voice recognition for security. And so they need to have about a 15 to 30-second conversation with me to understand, okay, this is Wendy Johansson, this is who always calls, and we can go ahead and perform these actions for her. There have been a couple of times in recent past, they asked me for a little security detail, and I found that that was usually me being in a noisy place. I'm standing on the street. You should never stand on the street to do your banking, by the way. And they asked me, what's your social security number? Tell us a little more detail. And it's always your environment that's really going to help change that. You're still limited by the actual physical technology, such as this mic. Ooh, this mic works now. I don't know why I'm actually holding this one. All right, so limited by technology. So the next thing I want to move into is, what are the limitations of these different models that we can apply to voice recognition applications? So the most obvious one is language. These are examples of the old world language families, and this doesn't even begin to expand into all the different regional dialects, all the kind of sub-languages within, Chinese itself. Personally, I know 3 different types of Chinese. Most people think, oh, it's just Chinese. You can speak to anybody who's in China. Absolutely not. I'm from Hong Kong. Can't really understand anybody in China until I went to college and studied Chinese for 2 years. So it's a very different model, and today language models are basically learning a very specific language, and so that's a limitation. So if you have Siri and it's just learning English, and let's just say Apple never developed internationally for it, you're not going to see the divorce staff walking around talking to their phone, actually dictating their text. So it's a very limiting model because you have to develop per language. A second limitation that I feel fairly strongly about is acoustic models. So this is where we start getting into dialects. This is where the Scottish guys would have really liked 11 to be understood. And this one's very personal for me because my husband, he's Swedish, but he had a British nanny, and then he moved to France. So he has a very peculiar accent. I didn't know he was Swedish when I met him. Oftentimes, because he doesn't sound Swedish, people think he said he's from Switzerland, because people don't know the difference between Switzerland and Sweden. And so for him, none of these voice recognition softwares work for him. He yells at Siri, and it's very, very amusing. I get these random text messages from him, and they say very bizarre things, and I'm thinking, wow, either this is very creepy or very romantic. I don't know what's going on here. And then I'll get a text message following up saying, sorry, Siri failed again. And that's where acoustic modeling is a huge limitation, because it's really learning by the actual audio examples. So you need to have thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of recordings for this to learn from. And that's going to be specific not only to local and regional dialect, but even something as simple as, okay, well, I have a sore throat. I'm trying to call my doctor, trying to get through this voice recognition system, and maybe it's not working because I have a very hoarse voice because obviously I'm sick. That's why I'm calling my doctor. So this is another huge limitation in the model today. So Andrew, I'm going to mess up his name, Andrew Nee, he is the chief scientist, I believe, at Baidu, which is a huge internet company based in China. They do a lot of great things. They have a lot of money. Yeah. He used to also be the Stanford director of artificial intelligence. I think it's a lab, not sure, fuzzy on that, sorry about that. But basically, what he said is, it's not in the next 50 years that we're going to have massive improvements in speech recognition. It's actually that we're going to make a little progress on the models and how they can learn, but the big progress that we're going to make is in the usability of those systems. And so that's where I have a strong feeling about, designers, humans, the creators, we're the ones who matter in this system. These things aren't just going to create themselves. Yes, you can leave, a model running on thousands and thousands of servers somewhere, a supercomputer, and it's going to learn a lot. It's going to develop quite a bit. But it's the people that are going to apply, the usability of an Alexa. So the only visual cue you have on Alexa is the little ring on top, and the colors tell you when Alexa's listening, when something's processing, when there's an error. And it's those visual cues, that user experience, that still matters. Artificial intelligence is not mind reading. You still need to have a physical user experience to it. And even if that physical user experience isn't with your hands, it's with your voice, it's still a physical user experience. And so this is where we jump into usability. So there's a lot of jokes about usability. It's a very kind of old word, old topic. It's been in technology for a while, but very few people understand what usability is. Usability is not me coming up to you and saying, hey, figure out this clicker. It's the big green button. All right, great, it's usable, done. It's me taking this to somebody who's colorblind, who might not see, okay, so it's not the green button because I'm colorblind and I can't see green. Or maybe somebody who has physical disabilities and doesn't have a sense of feel, so you can't feel this raised button is where you press. So there's a lot of factors in ergonomics and language and everything that we consider in usability. And a lot of the way that people approach new technology is, okay, there's this new technology, we have to create all these brand new processes for how we think about it, for how we interact with it, for how we design for it, for how we launch it, for how we sell it, for how we market it. So people are creating whole new paradigms. They're reinventing the wheel for every new type of technology that comes out. That's not necessary though, especially not in human-computer interaction, especially not in user experience. The core values that already exist, error modeling, giving people flexibility, giving people ease of use, giving people positive and negative confirmations. These things still matter, no matter you're building something that somebody can physically touch, something that people are swiping on a screen, something that people are doing by voice. So usability heuristics still apply, no matter what the system you're building. And I think that's the main thing that people forget is when we're talking about artificial intelligence and the application of it, humans are still very, very much involved. Yesterday, we had, as a speaker group, some questions from the press, and one of the fun questions that was asked was, what can we do to prevent this doom of artificial intelligence taking us over? And I personally think that, it's our and your responsibility as the people in the businesses, as the people who want to take this technology and apply it, to actually have some social context for that, to actually consider, what we're making here is being made by people, so we need to think about the people who are going to use it. We got to think about the situations. Things don't create themselves, is my point here. We are here today to talk about artificial intelligence and how this changes the world, but it's people that change the world. So as we continue to move forward with that, I think that human touch is what's going to bring next year's words. Thank you.